you'll have an idea of just how little money it takes to save big on that monthly electric bill. I did it, and within seconds, they measured my roof and calculated my savings. It's very impressive. Go to HarmonSolar.com and give it a try yourself. That's HarmonSolar.com.
Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win, breakaway, pick six, three-point shot, underdog win, buzzer beater, shootout, walk-off, and absolutely every play in between is amazing. From football to basketball and hockey to baseball, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Arizona.
Last year's RV trip, we met a couple with the same bumper sticker. What are the odds?
Your cousin isn't a good storyteller.
He was a podiatrist, or was it a pharmacist? Huh?
You don't say.
Oh, I can't remember.
But she owns an RV protected by Progressive, and you don't. So until you get your own RV, her stories are the most interesting stories you've ever heard.
Wow, interesting.
And when you do get your own RV, save money by bundling it with your home, auto, or other vehicles with Progressive.
Oh, anesthesiologist. He was an anesthesiologist.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Mommy, want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with DayQuil VapoCool. It's DayQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let Mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is DayQuil VapoCool.
DayQuil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
AZ Preps 365, your source for all the news, info, highlights, and more. Athlete news and interviews. Talk with coaches. Keep you up to date with the changes, moves, upcoming events, and more. AZ Preps 365, Arizona's ultimate prep sport show. If you miss a minute, you miss a lot. AZ Preps 365, Saturday mornings 8 till 10 on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Porte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Porte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Porte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
Hey, son, what you doing?
Looking around for jobs, offices, 9 to 5. I don't want anything boring.
You know, Brian's son is in the Phoenix Police Academy. Pretty sure he's not bored.
I never thought of that.
Check out joinphxpd.com and take a look.
Over 80 specialty details like detective and canine handler. What else? Dignitary protection, 911 operator? They have aviation and dive team jobs?
Rise to serve. Find more today at joinphxpd.com. Protect and serve with the elite.
Sponsored by the City of Phoenix.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM. Wherever you go, take us along. Listen to our live stream on our free Fanatic app. Download it today.
Here we go, another Thursday, which means another day full of Thursday night football, and we've got it here for you right here on 1580 The Fanatic, and we're going to talk about it. NFC West divisional matchup, Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers. Who's going to come out on top? Well, we'll get to that and some of the potential big performers in the game that maybe can help you beat the book, make yourself a little bit of money. I'm Keon Rose. Alongside me is our betting expert, Dylan Cohen. And we are broadcasting from the Harmon Solar Studios here at 1580 Fanatic in sunny uptown Scottsdale. You're on the text line at 888-368-1580. And today on the show, we're not just talking Thursday night football. We'll give you a little recap of some of the games that happened yesterday in Major League Baseball because we had the playoffs going, some big surprises yesterday and how the results of those games turned out. We'll get to that. We'll also give you some of our thoughts on the NFL weekend coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So we'll get you some of the matchups that matter and how you can find little advantages to make some money. And by the way, let us know what happened yesterday for you. Did you make any bets? Did you make any money? Did you lose any money? We're here for you.
But before we get to any and all of those things, Dylan, who powers the show?
We are sponsored by Sport Trade, and if you have not somehow already looked them up, got your account set up, make sure you do so, because you're missing out on one of the most unique live betting experiences that is currently available right now in the Valley amongst all the other sports books. They've got better prices than everyone else. They'll accept your live wager immediately, no spinny wheels. And if you like this whole implied probability thing that we keep talking about, where you can wager based on a percentage likelihood of something happening instead of those arbitrary, American odds, then you can start using Sport Trade. They've got exactly what you're looking for. Make sure to use promo code 1580 to take advantage of the 10% cashback promotion when you sign up with Sport Trade. And on that note, Keon, we're getting to that special time of year. A lot of options, a lot of different sports coming on. It's really great to emerge out of the the summers where, unless it's like an Olympic year, like it just was for us, we're pretty deprived by now of just better things to look to try and spread your wagers around with. And tonight specifically, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We've got NBA preseason that's ongoing. There's a few college football games that are on tonight. We've got the WNBA finals kicking off today, and we spoke a little bit about that yesterday. Really exciting matchup there. I did post some bets to place on that on the Beat the Book website, so make sure you check those out. And then, of course, we've got the Thursday night football matchup, and it is a NFC West showdown between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. And if you stick around on this beautiful radio station here on 1580 The Fanatic, you'll be able to catch the actual broadcast for Thursday night football. That'll be starting at 4:30 after the Daily Blender. So make sure you stick around. And Keon, I just feel like I have to bring this up. Anyone that's listening right now, if you have not seen this highlight, I encourage you to go find it. It was really awesome to see. As I mentioned before, NBA preseason's happening right now. It's just pretty meaningless basketball, unless it's, LeBron and Bronny, playing together, then, that's going to get a lot of eyeballs. But we got a different pairing finally yesterday that I've personally been really excited to take a look at. And it is Chris Paul, who recently joined the San Antonio Spurs. And, we know what kind of a generational point guard he is. We know, what he does for all the various big men that he's ever, been teammates with throughout his NBA career. So this has been a really exciting pairing to see him with Victor Wembanyama. They finally got their first reps in last night, and Chris Paul alley-ooped a pass to Victor Wembanyama, and it just looked too easy.
It looked like a kid dunking on a Nerf hoop. That's what it looked like. You're like, he's like, I don't know, 3-4 feet away from the basket, but his arms are so damn long. It's just he can dunk from a million miles away, and not lightly. It's not like he's just barely getting the ball there. It's still two hands firmly punching the basketball through the basket. I've never seen anything like this. And boy, if you thought that Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and the Lob City Clippers were scary, Lob City is in San Antonio now. It's in San Antonio, and it looks unguardable. I'll just be honest. It looks like you can't stop it.
Chris Paul didn't even look like in the direction that he tossed the ball up. Like he's got a very good feel of like what general area in the air do I just need to just like lob it up there, and Wemby can do the rest. He added about 30 pounds to his frame over the time between him going into last season and him right now. And he's still very young, still growing, still putting on more muscle.
It's one of those things. He got drafted, and a lot of fans saw Wemby and they went, but he's so skinny. I encourage you to go back and look at pictures of Giannis Antetokounmpo when he first got in the NBA versus Giannis now. I'm not saying Wemby's going to have like that transformation, because Giannis went from being a skinny little kid to actually Hercules, but Wemby already looks much larger, and he's somebody you can't just push around the way you used to get him away from the basket. Like you could kind of undercut his legs to stop some of those lobs last year. I don't think you can do that now because he's much stronger and it shows.
And he's certainly going to get some more playing time this year. Greg Popovich was very conservative with Wemby in year one, being a lot more present about his physicality compared to the other big men that he's going to be playing against. He knew that there was going to be a growing period, a adjustment window where, Wemby's going to have to improve his endurance. He's going to have to put on some more weight to be able to really, handle the battles with all these other bigs he's going to be going up against. And you can see the difference that 30 pounds has made in terms of like what he's willing to try to do on the court now versus, being maybe a little bit, just conservative about it last year. So really, really excited for that. NBA season kicks off in less than 2 weeks. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about this kind of stuff from us. But we got to focus on, what's going on right now and what happened yesterday. There were a couple of baseball games that took place after the show, and we did have some picks on those. The New York Yankees managed to defeat the Kansas City Royals yesterday in Kansas City. Final score was 3-2. This was a pretty exciting game in general. Yeah. I mean, low scoring, but
it was tense. There were lead changes, and it was tense. It was sort of the Yankees get up 2-0, and then it gets really shaky in the middle of that game. The Royals get a couple of runs on the board, and you're going back and forth, and you're genuinely not sure coming up to the end of that game who's going to get the win. The Yankees get the edge and get it done. But yeah, no, I like games like that because you got the good pitching. You've got tense baseball games. That's what playoff baseball is all about.
And Bobby Witt finally got a hit. He had been, I think it was, he had 12 at-bats in that series, didn't get a single hit, had struck out like 5 times, possibly 6. I got to look at that. And so perhaps he's starting to kind of break out of that slump. It came at his last at-bat in the game yesterday. Royals ended up stranding runners on first and third in a 2-2 game at the bottom of the 8th, it was 3-2 at that point. So they just were not able to pull it off. But they've got game 4 tonight against the Yankees. Yankees are going for the kill. They've got Garrett Cole on the mound. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. And then the other big game yesterday, and this is the series that I know you and I are much more, paying closer attention to here, and that is the Padres and the Dodgers. Been very big on sticking with the Padres, taking the money line each matchup. And when it seemed like, everything was going to be in their favor yesterday, we had a very improbable performance from the Dodgers, specifically their relievers. It was a bullpen game for them, and they managed to shut out the San Diego Padres, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those playoff performances where if it doesn't go well, we're looking at Davey Roberts going, what on earth were you thinking? But it works out. The bullpen game kind of pays off, and they got the offense and the production to put a lot of pressure on the Dodgers, on the Padres rather. And I think once the pressure was on to try and get offense, it wasn't just, hey, let's get on base and let's get through. It's, hey, now we're down a couple of runs. We're down 3 runs. We're down 4 runs. We start forcing things. I think the Padres don't play their best baseball from behind. They really start to swing at everything, and it looks really ugly for them. And even a guy like Fernando Tatis, who you could rely on for home runs over the course of this postseason, trying a little bit too hard, because once you fall behind, you just start really cracking under the pressure.
Well, and to your point there, that was the first game in the series that Fernando Tatis did not manage to hit a home run. So was bummed about that. But now for 2 games in a row in that series, Mookie Betts, first plate appearance, home run. Might have to start.
Mookie went yard, and yeah, if he's going to play like that, I would bet some version of that every night. Because he is a consistent performer. That's what he showed, I think, all regular season long was when he was healthy. He was playing consistently. There weren't really slumps for Mookie this year, and I think that this year. He hasn't really been bad. Like he had that rough stretch against the Diamondbacks last season where he just couldn't hit anything. I don't think that that's going to happen. But if he's going to start to have like I step up to the plate and I just knock this thing out of the park, I I think that we can rely on Mookie because he's been that guy.
So there will be some picks for that game tomorrow because that game's happening tomorrow night. So we'll have to consider, you know, it might be Mookie Betts for an RBI. It could be something pertaining to his specifically first plate appearance. You know, that's a way to get a pretty juiced line. So we'll look at that stuff. We'll let you know what we're thinking there. You know, as far as what's going on for today, you know, we mentioned it already. We've got Thursday night football, really compelling matchup, a lot more relevant to us considering this is an NFC West showdown here. And, you know, the Niners are coming off a pretty disappointing home loss to the Cardinals. So, you know, plenty of motivation on their end to try and, you know, get back on the right track and, you know, get back in the division. More importantly, you know, if they were to lose this one, it's potentially going to have a pretty big impact on, you know, where they could ultimately get in as far as the postseason. You know, well, I have to imagine, though, it's really going to put a lot more pressure on them to like have to just like win out and avoid, you know, the wild card round. And when you're so far behind in the division, assuming they end up losing tonight, which again feels kind of far-fetched, but I'm sure it felt far-fetched last week too.
That's true.
There's a lot of pressure there. And then, you know, Seattle coming off a loss at home as well.
And against, I think, a much worse team than Arizona. Like the Giants just aren't as talented, and you're losing to the Giants with no Malik Neighbors, who is easily the best offensive player on that team. There are real problems in Seattle, and we can get into that, but like there are some issues that they don't have addressed that if the Niners lean on what the Giants started to expose a little bit and what the Lions started to expose a little bit, this is going to be a Seahawks team that's going to be in desperation mode from basically now until the end of the year. They have to change something.
So stick around. When we get into the next segment, we're going to be going through that game more specifically, you know, looking at trends, looking at different bets to make. But, you know, we also want to spend a little bit of time on, you know, this upcoming NFL Sunday. We've got a lot of really interesting matchups on the slate this weekend. And I think it's only right for us to get into a little bit of Cardinals talk here. You know, coming off that really awesome win in San Francisco. Cardinals are going to be in Green Bay this coming Sunday, taking on the Packers. And, you know, I've already mentioned this on the show. You know, we kind of laughed a little bit about it last week, but I ended up being right, ironically. You know, I am a homer when it comes to the Cardinals. So you don't see me putting out Cardinals money line a lot on the beat the book bets or the picks because I'm trying to give you guys the more objective stuff, not the subjective stuff. So I'm not going to be able to put the biggest analytical defense behind why I believe the Cardinals can go into Green Bay and actually win this game, other than the fact that they just went to San Francisco and did it against all odds.
I have some statistical things for that, which one, Green Bay pass rush, underwhelming. They just haven't done a great job. They are, I think, kind of mid to low ranked as a defensive line by PFF. They're just not getting to quarterbacks. And that's the more stationary quarterback. So if you're struggling to get to those guys, you're probably not getting to Kyler, which means he's going to have more time to throw the football than in most games that he's played. So that's one thing. And I'm not saying the Cardinals will win. I think I'm probably picking the Packers in this one. But what I'm saying is that defensive line not being able to get pressure does actually help the Cardinals. The other thing is Jordan Love. He's kind of been a roller coaster ride since coming back from that injury. The peaks of Jordan Love are crazy good. Like, he just looks like a guy who can carry a team to a Super Bowl the way that he plays when he's playing his best football. The problem is that he's also playing his worst football at times too. And there are just moments where the ball just doesn't move up the field, or he takes risks throwing the football that he doesn't really have to. And I just think that with Jordan Love, he's not the most reliable quarterback right now. And this is a Cardinals defense that it bends, but it doesn't break. We were talking about it before the show. You get to the red zone, it's much, much more difficult to score on these Cardinals if you're not basically striking the end zone from 50 yards out or something. Like, you start to get inside the 20s. The Cardinals do a pretty good job of making sure you stay out of scoring position. And that's how they were able to beat the Niners a week ago. And that's what it would take to beat the Packers in this game. So, like, yeah, they did beat the Niners last week. So that's got to be a boost, a confidence boost for this Cardinals team. But there are actual on-field reasons, too, for why I think the Cardinals can feel fairly confident that they've got a shot in this game.
Well, based on the current odds right now, and I'm just looking at FanDuel for that game, the Cardinals are sitting as a 4.5-point underdog, currently priced at plus 210 on the money line. So just a little bit over 2-to-1 payout there. And I mean, this just feels like another opportunity where you can, get some good value on the money line if you're looking at the Cardinals. But again, if you're a Green Bay Packers fan and that there's no way the Cardinals are coming into Lambeau and doing anything special, then perhaps you want to look to play your team on the spread. If you think that they're going to win by a touchdown or more for the Packers, you can push that out. Take advantage of over even money odds with where that line is right now. I mean, do you see this being like a high scoring affair, Keon? I mean, total over under right now on points is 47.5.
The Ravens and the Commanders, this feels like a very high scoring game to me. Because of the secondaries, the Commander secondary.
Oh, we're still on the.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I got distracted by the text line and I thought we had moved to the. No, I don't know that this is a high scoring game necessarily. I mean, I think the Cardinals like kind of cap out in the 20s with what their offensive production seems to be consistently as, and a little bit of that is just that they've been kind of up and down as an offense, but also they run the ball. So because the Cardinals are such a run heavy team, and because the Packers would like to be a more run heavy team, I don't think that this is a high scoring game because you're running out the clock a lot of the time. I think that I don't know if I'm like confident in playing the under, but I don't think that this is a game where you're just back and forth and it's just basketball on turf. I don't feel like that's the case.
I think you're on the right track there because I'm just looking over like both of the teams and the scores of all the games that they've played. And for the Packers and for the Cardinals, in 2 out of 5 games so far, they have gone over 47.5. So in the majority of each team's games played up until this point, that total score is 47 or less. So that line's at a pretty good point right now if you're thinking the way that we are, and perhaps this will be a little bit more of a run heavy game and not is heavy with the scoring. But Keon, I definitely want to get into some conversation about your Commanders. To me, that's one of the more interesting matchups this week. I know we're pressed
before we
for
move on
a little bit. Yep.
Ringless Joe texted in really quick. The real story of that Seahawks versus Giants game is that the Lions opponent always loses the next week. It's happened all 4 weeks that the Lions have played this season. I personally think that's a fun stat, but I don't make future predictions based on stats like that, because if you take a look at the schedule, actually look at who they played. They played the Rams, who are bad. They played the Buccaneers, who like that's a team that you could be a little surprised they lost the following week. They played the Cardinals, who aren't great right now. They played the Seahawks, who are reeling. These are not great teams. These are teams that are losing and winning every other week, whether or not they play the Lions. So I don't know that proves that the Lions beat you or play you and then you lose the next week. But it is an interesting stat, though.
Yeah, well, and I mean, to piggyback on that, and you and I were talking a little bit about this before the show. Geno Smith, in his time as the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, has never been able to beat the 49ers. Not once. 0-4 record.
Yeah.
So,
and I always take stats like that with a grain of salt, too, because it's a nice stat in a vacuum. There's a correlation there, but does that tell me about this game right now with these players? And I don't know that stat always accounts for that, especially if you're talking about a matchup that goes back multiple years. Well, now we have different rosters. We may have different coaches in the building. Like in this particular matchup, Mike McDonald is a very different coach from Pete Carroll. And so all of that stuff kind of factors in to all of those decisions. I don't look at any one stat like that and go, that's how I'm going to pick a game. I personally don't.
No, and I mean, that's smart. With either of those, trends that we've thrown out, there's just so many changing variables that, I mean, you can't rely on it like it's, the law of the land. But there is something to be said. I mean, some of these wackier trends that we've seen, so far this season, I mean, they're playing out. They're continuing to play out. If you look at teams that are underdogs by 6.5 points or more on the pregame line, like they're straight up. They have like a winning record. This was earlier this week. I had sent you like a graphic on it.
Yeah, I saw it. I don't.
It was like 20 and it was like 21 and 18 straight up, or something along those lines, or 10 and 8 straight up.
Yeah, like not even just covering the spread. Like they're actually just outright winning games. They were 6-point underdogs.
Well, it's like the first time in NFL history that they've been over 500 even. So still just having a winning record up until this point. And then as far as covering the spread goes, they're like,
oh yeah, it's absurd. It's crazier at that point. So absolutely. So we're up against the break. We can do Commanders and Ravens on the other side if you want to, Dylan. And then we will bounce back around to Lions versus Cowboys. We'll check in on that very quickly. And then we'll get to Niners Seahawks to round out segment number 2. That's Beat the Book coming up next here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Let's say you've got questions. You're looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Well, Harman Solar has the answers. Hi, I'm Jeffrey O'Brien, and listen, there's a couple of ways you can go here. One, visit harmansolar.com, browse around, because right across the page, they got links to all sorts of great information, like frequently asked questions, equipment, tax credits, even testimonials. Or just give them a call, 800-281-3189. Ask them directly. They'd love to hear from you. That's 800-281-3189. Or just go to harmansolar.com. It's fall football season, and Kasai Japanese Steakhouse is doubling down, now with 2 Valley locations. When it comes to Asian cuisine, no one does it better and more authentic than Kasai, where talented Teppan chefs create the food, the fire, and the fun of teppanyaki. Kasai Japanese Steakhouse isn't just dinner, it's dinnertainment. A memorable dining experience where a delicious 7-course meal is prepared right at your table with flair. It's a perfect choice for celebrations, date nights, or a night on the town. Choose from over 30 different items and combinations of teppanyaki, Asian fusion, and innovative sushi. Happy hour is always on fire and offered daily with specials on their Asian-inspired comfort food like Korean steak tacos, Mongolian barbecue ribs, and signature Wagyu beef sliders. Always a memorable dinner, or catch the game and a bite at the bar at Kasai. Now the 2 locations, Scottsdale Road in Thunderbird, and in Peoria at the 101 in Northern. Go to KasaiTeppan.com. That's KASAI Teppan.com, or search Kasai on your mobile phone.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
J.D. Hayworth here, and the road to feeling better leads to my good friends Dr. William and Ava Gaspar at Beehive IV Wellness in Chandler. With both licensed nurses and physicians on staff by appointment or walk-in, Beehive IV Wellness takes a holistic, naturopathic approach that helps your body with self-healing. All of today's popular treatments are available at Beehive Wellness, from IV hydration to joint injections, even popular semaglutide for weight loss. If you haven't tried IV treatment, you're missing out on your chance to really get healthy. So look them up, make an appointment, or simply walk into Beehive IV Wellness at their Chandler Clinic, where you always get a free initial consultation. Mention me, J.D. Hayworth, get half off your first treatment. Search Beehive IV Wellness on your mobile phone. You'll thrive with Beehive.
Now, you can be the guy that eventually gets bits and pieces of the latest news.
Or you can get the whole story when it breaks.
The NFL is always in season here.
That's how we do it.
Follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Or at 1580thefanatic.com.
We were going through some NFL games, kind of get you prepared for tonight. We have Seahawks, Niners, right here on 1580 The Fanatic, right after the Daily Blender, right after Beat the Book, this show. So on the text line, Ringless Joe asks, can Trevor Lawrence and the Jags get the win in Chicago? Which actually, we were talking about that during the break. It's a London game. So it's technically a home game for the Jags. Or will Caleb Williams work magic with that Swiss cheese O-line again? And there's some things for context going on there, but I want to get Dylan's thoughts really quick before I blabber on.
My initial thought was, oh, Bears are going to win for sure. Then we started doing a little bit of digging. The London thing, I really actually think is important in this particular game. The Jags have an excellent record, looking at the more recent years of their, history of playing those London games. They won both of them last season. Doug Peterson, since being the coach of the Jags, is 2-1 in London. Trevor Lawrence, over the course of his career, is 3-1 in those London games. So I do feel like they get a bit of a boost. It truly is a home field environment.
Well, we keep sending them over there. So at some point, a little bit of a Jaguars fan base has actually developed in London. That's not a joke. That's a real thing.
So, I mean, you take that into consideration. It's hard to overlook the what the Bears do defensively and the D line, but the Jaguars, as Keon, as you were telling me, they kind of have a similar vulnerability that that Trevor Lawrence, is ultimately going to have with the pass rush of the Bears. Caleb Williams may, potentially be struggling as well.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams have offensive lines that aren't fantastic, though I would make the very, very strong argument. And quite frankly, an argument that doesn't need to be made if you've watched either team, that the Bears' offensive line is worse by a lot. It's much worse. And the Bears' pass rush is no joke. I get that. So it's not like Trevor's going to have a great time back there in London. However, because the Bears' offensive line is worse, and because the Jags have, I don't know, you might have heard of him, Travon Walker, for instance, Josh Hines-Allen, is the edge rusher on the other side. Caleb Williams is going to get hit. He's going to get hit a lot. Last week, he looked really, really good against the Panthers, who have a terrible pass rush. It's anemic. These guys don't get to the quarterback. Caleb Williams actually had an average time to throw the football last week, which he hasn't had at any point in the season before that. He's going to get roughed up back there. And it's in an international game for a rookie quarterback. I'm not thrilled about this for the Bears.
I have concerns just about Caleb Williams being a rookie and how is he going to handle, going over the pond.
Yeah, that's also a little bit of a factor you have to consider. I don't want to read too much into that, but when you look at all the other factors too, like if everything else were perfect for the Bears around Caleb Williams, all of the weapons were healthy, the offensive line was good, the running game was solid, then I would feel more comfortable about the rookie doing well in another country. But when we're talking about a team that has a lot of problems still, and then you're sending him in an international game that's technically a road game, even though it's technically a home game, this has the potential to be a very discouraging thing for Caleb Williams. And we've seen how many guys in this NFL have been rookies. They've showed a lot of promise. They get behind these terrible offensive lines and then just have the confidence beat out of them by defensive lines that love teeing off on young quarterbacks.
So it's funny. I feel like I've just come full circle now. I started Bears. We've talked it out. I'm going Jags on this one. I think they back up what they started last week. This could be the turn of the tide for them. Their owner, Shad Khan, he's put out his vote of confidence. He said that he believes this is the absolute most talented group of players, coaches that he's ever assembled.
Which I know the record doesn't show it, but I think he's right.
So perhaps we start to see that actually play out a bit more. Wasn't the easiest win versus the Colts, with no Anthony Richardson, but they still got the job done. And I think the Jags just have the experience of handling these London games. They do it all the time. They're going to have more of the crowd behind them. So if it were me, I would bet on the Jags.
I'm going Jags too. That's a great question, Ringless Joe. So let's hurry up now because we're kind of running out of time to get to Ravens Commanders, because this is a very fascinating game. I'm incredibly excited to see what kind of game is going on. And when I accidentally answered the over under question about this, I was looking at the secondaries. I think this game is going to be a shootout. The Ravens have been in a few so far this season. So have the Commanders. The Commanders aren't injured. Their defense on the back end just sucks. But the Ravens are injured, and it is affecting their secondary a lot. Their starters are healthy, but their rotational guys aren't, and teams rotate guys often. So you could see it affecting Baltimore out there, the way Joe Burrow was able to get 500 yards of passing offense on them. I really think that this one's going back and forth, and it's going to be fun.
This is, I think, probably going to be my favorite game of the week. The Commanders, I would say, are my favorite underdog pick. Part of that is because they currently stand as a 6.5 point underdog,
right?
Which we like those 6.5 point dogs. They've been doing pretty well so far in the NFL. But look, Jayden Daniels is for real. I think I'm ready to go ahead and just call that. We've seen what's happened on the field so far. We've seen how that's translated into the record for the Commanders. But then you start to learn more about what's happening off the field that's contributing to that success. And what's clear is that Jayden Daniels is approaching his job with a work ethic that is just unparalleled, at least when you're comparing him to the other rookies. I would have to imagine he's probably working a lot harder than most of the vets. And then you couple in this whole VR thing that he leverages to get all these additional reps. They're saying that it literally equates to thousands of additional reps, because that's just how much he's utilizing the software.
Yeah, I mean, when the Commanders played the Browns, I forget what network was on the broadcast, but like Mark Schlereth was doing the game, and he has a podcast where he just unloads the notes on Monday, because they get all of this information from interviewing all of these players and stuff. And then Monday after whatever game he does, it's just like, here's all the notes that I had. And he was just talking about how much, when he was talking to Jayden, it's just like he's a junkie. He just loves football so much. He's constantly consuming it. He doesn't do anything else. It's insane that a rookie has that mindset right off of the bat. But then also when you add in the stuff that Cliff is doing schematically, because I think that that's absolutely huge. And far be it for me to give credit to Cliff Kingsbury, who I genuinely do not like as a play caller most times, but like he's doing crazy things with the offensive line to try and buy Jayden a little extra time, because the Commanders don't have a good offensive line either. But they're moving him around. They're moving the line around in terms of how they protect him to make defenses a little bit more confused, and it's working. I don't know how much it's going to work against this Ravens defense, but there's a collection of things working together. Obviously, the run game's been great. Brian Robinson, multiple 100-yard performances this season as well. I think that the Commanders, Jayden adds a lot to it, but when you start looking at what the other players are doing and what the coaching staff is doing, they're elevating every aspect of what this team is.
My expectation of how this game plays out is honestly very similar to how the Commanders played the Bengals, and very similar to how the Ravens played the Bengals. Just a back and forth, high scoring affair, many lead changes. Perhaps the Commanders find themselves in a position to win towards the end, and then we see Jayden Daniels, the game manager, do his thing. Start to kind of focus on the run. Get the clock down, so that the Commanders are in, position to take that final shot at trying to win the game. So you've got the Commanders priced at plus 245 on the money line. Over under on the total points is currently at 51.5 on FanDuel. Definitely leaning towards the over on that one. And at this point, Keon, I think we should just go right into Niners and Seahawks here. There were a number of picks that I did post for that game. If you're not following me on Instagram already, you can get to the Beat the Book website through my Instagram account. The tag is at Beat the Book Fanatic, all spelled out. Just click on the link in the bio. That'll take you right to the website with all the picks. Likewise, you can visit 1580thefanatic.com. Scroll down, click on the Beat the Book with Dylan Cohen logo. That'll take you to the same place where you can see which bets we are posting for you to make in this game. And the absolute best thing that AI could certainly validate in this one was backing the San Francisco 49ers on the first half spread. When I had first put together the post for today and put it out, the line on that was sitting at -1.5. The last time I looked at it, it had moved to 2.5, which basically just means that there's other people out there that also believe that that's a good wager, and they've been hitting that line. It's currently sitting at -2.5 on FanDuel. When you look at the Niners and how they've played teams so far this year, their problems aren't in the first half generally. The only team that they weren't beating by halftime so far this season was when they faced the Vikings in Minnesota, which, by now we probably have a good enough sample size to be able to say, well, that's because that's one of the best teams in the league, and certainly one of the better defenses. But you look at them paired up against anyone else that they've played, they're coming into halftime winning by generally 4 or more points, and they're averaging about 12 points in the first half of games so far this season. So, for that line to be less than a field goal still, definitely value in it. You can still back it at -2.5. That was a play where AI saw roughly a 60% likelihood of the Niners covering that -1.5 first half spread there. I just personally have some concerns about the 49ers in the second halves of their games. This is kind of an interesting stat. They actually shouted it out on the You Better You Bet show that comes on just before this. But the San Francisco 49ers currently have one of the worst red zone offenses in all of the NFL. They are bottom 5 in terms of their ability to score in the red zone. And that was something that did hurt them in that game against the Cardinals last week. There were some other issues going on pertaining to their kicker, and that influenced a lot of their decisions down the stretch. So it's a little bit of a one-off, so to say. But that other game that they played against that other NFC West team this season, the Rams.
The Rams, who are injured and dinged up, and their secondary is not any good. You would think that Brock Purdy and the Niners would take advantage, but the play calling wasn't particularly aggressive.
Well, and to that point, the Niners were up at halftime in that game, and then they did not have a good second half, and they ended up losing by 3 points. They were up 14-7 at halftime in that game. So you've got 2 games now against NFC West rivals where you have a good first half, you cover that spread, and then things fall apart in the second half. Is that going to happen tonight against Seattle? I am concerned enough about it to not take the Niners on the money line. How are you feeling about it, Keon?
I feel a little bit better about it just because of who they faced in some of those other games. Like when you look at the quarterbacks that they've gone against, the games that they lost, you go up against Sam Darnold, who is red hot right now. You're going up against Matthew Stafford, who we know has his games where he just looks really, really good. And then the Cardinals, you got Kyler Murray. Like these things are happening against high level quarterbacks. So when you look at Geno Smith and the way he's been playing, there is a decent chance that this game gets a little weird when you start to get down to the end of it. I still like the Niners just because I think that their defense is much better than the Giants' defense. And when last I checked, the Seahawks have not fixed that offensive line at all. It's terrible. And like the teams are picking on Evan Neal, which sucks because I love Evan Neal. I thought he was great in college, but they're picking on him. And when you have a defender last week in New York push Evan Neal into Geno to make the tackle, that's a problem. And it happened 3 times, not once. So Nick Bosa, if he ever finds himself on that side of the line, I have serious concerns about the Seahawks and their ability to stop him from going off. And he's not the only guy on that defensive line that'd love to have a chance to knock out Geno Smith.
So as far as San Francisco 49ers players go, because I did not put out any player props specifically on 49ers guys. Just kind of looking over, the betting market right now and props. I would have to imagine Jordan Mason is a pretty natural player to, try to look at, to be productive in this game. His current line on rushing is sitting at 85.5. His rushing plus receiving line is sitting at 96.5. Do you see Jordan Mason as someone that's going to get a lot of utilization tonight? Is it going to be heavier rushing, or, perhaps Brock Purdy might look for him, with some passing?
I think Jordan Mason leads the NFL in rushing attempts, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go ahead and say heavy dose of Jordan Mason like every single week, because he's been reliable. He's breaking a lot of tackles. I think he's near the top of the NFL in that statistic as well. It's just such a good option for the Niners to run their offense through him They just haven't been able to figure out ways to take advantage of what he's done as far as action off of his ability to run the football. It's a different way than they play with McCaffrey, but I do think they've got to figure out a way to adjust because he is killing teams.
Well, and his line on rush attempts is sitting over under 17.5, leaning towards the over. So that might be the way to try and take advantage of the way that the Niners are going to deploy Mason tonight. And then, the other thing I wanted to just highlight here was the fact that Geno Smith is currently leading the NFL in passing yards. And the last 4 weeks, he's had pretty big passing yardage performances. And every single time I look at it and I'm like, why didn't I get on that?
Yeah. I mean, I just think at some point you just got to take the hot hand. Now, I should also point out that these are big passing yard games in a loss. So what happens if the Seahawks overtake the Niners in the second half, which is not something that's crazy to say could happen? Does Geno still throw the ball nearly as often, or are we giving the ball to Kenneth Walker to try to ice this game out? That would be the risk of that not hitting. But like I said, I think that the Seahawks will probably wind up behind the 8 ball early. So there's a good chance, because Geno's been throwing the ball like nearly 50 times a game, there's a good chance that keeps going.
Well, and I have to imagine that he is, aware of what his current record is versus the Niners. I mean, this is the team that the Seahawks are, trying to look up to in the division. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of self-motivation there for Geno to try and, get over the hump and do what he's got to do to get his team the win. Keon, we gotta get to a break here.
Yeah, we're a little over, but that's fine. We just got through all of the stuff there. So we'll get to our picks for the day. And maybe get a little bit deeper into some other NFL stuff. I know there was one other game we kind of passed over because of time. So if time permitting, we might talk a little Lions and Cowboys. You're listening to Beat the Book here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Hey, football fans, Michael Vick here. I had an advantage. My legs were a weapon. 6,109 rushing yards, still unbeaten records. That's why I bet at BetUS.com. They offer American sports bettors an advantage. The industry's biggest bonus, a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. And get expert picks and predictions on their very own BetUS TV. Take advantage. Join me online at BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. BetUS, where the game begins.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-457-6060. That's 1-800-457-6060. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-457-6060. That's 1-800-457-6060.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Forte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, P-O-R-T-E. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
We are getting ready to crown a champion.
Championship weekend is coming back to the desert.
Let's get this party started.
4 title races in 3 days means there will be a buzz in the air all weekend long. Whether from the grandstands, the infield experience, or the hillside, this is your chance to witness history and make championship caliber memories for the whole family. NASCAR Championship Weekend at Phoenix Raceway, November 8th through the 10th. Get your tickets now at phoenixraceway.com.
Hey, sweetie. What you doing?
Looking around for jobs. Offices, 9 to 5. I don't want anything boring.
You know, Brian's daughter's in the Phoenix Police Academy. Pretty sure she's not bored.
I never thought of that.
Check out joinphxpd.com and take a look.
Over 80 specialty details like detective and canine handler. What else? Dignitary protection, 911 operator. They have aviation and dive team jobs? What?
Rise to serve. Find more today at joinphxpd.com. Protect and serve with the elite.
Sponsored by the City of Phoenix.
This is Brian Musburger. Don't miss Betting Across America, Saturdays at 11 a.m. right here on Arizona Sports Betting Station, 1580 and 99.3. The Fanatic.
Yeah, I think if the Cardinals go into Green Bay and win that game in Wisconsin, I might lose my mind. Just a little bit. It's distinctly possible.
I mean, if we didn't have the kind of NFL season that we've had so far, at least throughout the first, few weeks, I'd probably be right there with you. But I mean, this is like the most chaotic, most unpredictable NFL season, at least when you're talking about who's going to win the game, that I think I've probably ever seen.
Yeah, but I still think it's genuinely surprising when underdogs win, because it's never the same underdogs every week. And that's the thing that I think is the most interesting, is it's always some different assortment of teams. And it has to be, because that's the reason why we come away genuinely shocked from week to week that a certain result didn't exactly go down. I mean, the Cardinals have a chance to really play well against the Commanders. They have a letdown, and then they turn around and beat the Niners. Like, it's just, every week it just feels like you have no idea where the upsets are coming from. And which is why I'm still genuinely surprised at some things. And like, I do look at the Packers defense, and I am a little bit worried about that as far as the passing attack goes for the Cardinals, because the Packers have been very good against the pass.
Cardinals were an even bigger underdog last week. I mean, if anything, goes to show from what we've seen so far, it's that anything can happen in these games.
Yeah, but they were already playing the 500 San Francisco 49ers at the time, who are now below 500. They were a bigger underdog, but it's like we still believed in the Niners in a way that clearly people don't believe in the Niners quite to the same extent. Bettors kind of do, but just your typical fan, there's a little bit of that tarnish knocked off that I think the Niners have to go out there, win some football games, and get back. CK says, Jags money line, baby.
CK wins money by following the advice of this program. So I think CK is a very smart man, and he knows exactly what to bet on and what's going to win. So I cannot knock that Jags pick there.
And Ringless Joe says a lot of the favorites aren't even necessarily the best team. Some of these lines are holdovers from last season, like the market's love for the 49ers, Eagles, and Packers. Yeah, I mean, like, well into week 2, we were like, yeah, we still believe in the Eagles. Do you still believe in the Eagles now? Because we're talking about Sirianni potentially getting fired. If the Eagles lose this game on, this weekend, it's possible that Sirianni gets on a seat so hot that he's going to have to win the following game. He could be gone in 2 weeks. We could actually have that conversation, and it wouldn't be that surprising.
Well, and talk about, the holdover sentiment and how that's driving betting markets right now. Niners under 500 record, second most likely team to win the Super Bowl, according to the current odds right now at plus 700. I mean, if you want to break this down to the division, the Seahawks have a very good opportunity to really give themselves some distance if they end up winning tonight, but Niners are still the favorite to win the NFC West. So this is where, as a bettor, you have opportunities to take advantage, because it is flawed to just count on sentiment from last year's performance to kind of drive, where you see the teams now on the totem pole of, who's the best to who's the worst. So, and it's kind of interesting there, because then, like, you look at the NFC North, where, the Vikings are undefeated, and you would think that, that should justify them, being favored to win that division. But then you've got the Detroit Lions, right behind them, currently priced at plus 160. So it's interesting where it seems like in some divisions, the sentiment drives it. In others, it's like, no, we're going to forget about recent history. And yeah, all in on the Vikings. They should be the favorite. So, if you really just kind of take a step back and you look at these and you can acknowledge those patterns, I mean, you'll see it for yourself. This is not a perfect science by any means. There's certainly an argument to be made that the Lions could still turn their season around. I mean, not really like it needs to be turned around, but just compared to the Vikings, they're not undefeated. The Vikings are not going to have a perfect season. They're going to slip up at some point. It's just a matter of time. That was a great point. Great text. It's important to be mindful of, is sentiment driving what I'm trying to bet on, or is this because they're actually very good?
And the fact that, an NFL season is just so short. After 5 weeks, it sometimes is hard to tell when a team is legit. I remember back in 2020 pandemic year, the Pittsburgh Steelers started the season 7-0. They went into Washington and lost the next 5 games that they played and just barely squeaked into the playoffs. Like that is what can happen in the NFL. One team finds something that's wrong with you, finds a little wrinkle that maybe, no one noticed before. And then every team starts using it once it shows up on film. We see it happen all the time. So I don't ever read too much into what a team has done over the first quarter of a season. I try to balance it out with sort of what I know about football. Is what they're doing a sustainable thing? Can they keep that up? And it looks like the Vikings can keep this up, but I don't know that they're going to keep it up to the extent of an undefeated season. That seems like that's not going to happen, but it's an incredible run they're on regardless.
Absolutely. Before we take off here, I just want to shout out a couple of other bets you can look to make on the WNBA tonight, because there is a very, very good matchup for the WNBA finals with the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. These were truly like the two absolute best teams in the league. So really glad to see that we're getting this matchup. It's actually a rematch of the Commissioner's Cup finals that was played back in June. These are two teams that have played each other 4 times so far this season. The Lynx have won 3 out of 4 games. You can expect these games to be close. I don't see either one of these teams blowing out the other. So a 6.5 point spread with the Lynx priced as the underdog. They can lose by 6 or less or win. I'm going to take that all day long. Make sure you back the Lynx at plus 6.5. There's some additional player props that I've posted on that game. So make sure you check out the Beat the Book website so you can act on those. And Keon, that's all I got.
All right. That's Beat the Book. That'll do it for us today. Ringless Joe says, the Vikings will slip up next week when they end up in the jaws of a lion. So he's feeling pretty good about where Detroit is. CK says, I saw great value on Jack's money line plus 106 in London. Good call, CK. That's called reading the market right there. And that is how you beat the book. We'll see you tomorrow here on 1580 The Fanatic.
I'm Taylor Bisciotti with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. The Saints